I am in a most marvelous situation, and it has been brought to my attention to make some comments about the concept of a guy named Judah. Judah. Now, some people know details about the 12 sons of Israel. The guy Israel is also called Jacob. The word Jacob is basically the one who cheated his way into first place. The bold, gutsy one who grabbed the best. That's what Yaakov means. And then Yisrael means the one who contends or wrestles with God, with the most strong spirit. So the one who has the guts to bust out in the front place and take a good thing for himself also is the one who busts into God's presence and says, hey, I want to wrestle with you, and I wish you would do this, or I wish you would do that. So that's a cool name. The one who was gutsy and busted into first place became the one who had the balls and the audacity to wrestle with God, even though he knew God was stronger than him. He wanted to affect God. He wanted to manipulate. He wanted to influence God. He wanted to influence God. And it speaks of a contest, a contention. So, that person, Yaakov Yisrael, had 12 sons. The daughter Dinah, that's a story of a tragedy, the tragedy of men not being able to be wise or peaceable. The tragedy of Dinah. But 12 brothers. Only one of those 12 brothers became the lineage for Messiah Yeshua. And that is the brother named Judah. 12 brothers, one is named Judah. What does Judah mean? Judah means praise. It means praise. There is a scripture. The strongest spirit dwells in the praises of his people. So when you express praise towards God, God is actually dwelling in you at the moment that you're praising. It's a funky thing. It's almost like a cycle thing, going into the person who's praising and up to God, and from God into the person and up. It's a cyclical thing. So Judah, praise, is a pretty powerful word, a pretty powerful name to have. But go study the life of Judah, one of the sons of Israel, one of the sons of Yaakov Yisrael. Study the life of study the life of Judah, Judah. That guy there was a bad spirit around him. Kind of like a messed up family spirit. Messed up in the sex and family and children department. There was a problem around the praise person. There's a problem around the praise. And that problem is sexual and family disobedience, bad behavior, wrong attitude. That's the problem in the Judah praise. So, he's got one son. The son had no children. Doesn't say why. But that son was done away with. I forget the details. Then there's another son, and he does not want to make a baby with his brother's wife. He does not want to make a baby with his brother's wife. Now, I'm a person who did not want to make a baby with my wife because I was offended by the nasty aspects of her character. And I thought, I don't want this woman to be the mother of my flesh and blood children. What am I doing in this relationship? This is wrong for me to be with a woman if I don't want to have a child with her. It's wrong towards her. I realized like I was in a wrongful marriage situation because I was not delighted about the idea of having a child. So, like the second child of Judah, I was not interested in having a child. And it was not just because of my sadness about my wife's character. It was also, I feel like the world is so messed up, and I'm not even sure about myself. So why should I bring a child into the world? And then I found that scripture long afterwards that says, do not desire a brood of godless children. Don't just make babies. If you just make babies and they are godless, you're just putting more evil, messed up, tragic people into the world. Do not desire a brood of godless children. And do not make children who are just like you if you are completely separate from the beauty of eternity and the understanding of the spirit realm. So, the second son of Judah, Onan, did not want to let his seed become alive inside his wife woman. Now, it says that when it was time in his excitement for him to flow and ejaculate and flow his baby fountain, he spilled his seed not in her but out of her. And people talk about this as a warning against masturbation and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is he did not want to have a baby. It's not about stimulation and masturbation. It's literally about, it's an anti-child, anti-family, anti-lineage, anti-God instruction. It was God's instruction. If your brother doesn't have a child and he dies, you should have a child with his wife to continue the lineage. And that might all sound weird and patriarchal and stupid, and in some ways it is, on close look. But from farther away look, if there is actually a beauty in all lineage and flow of family, then this is stopping the flow of heaven through family. So Onan, the second son of Judah, also died. Snuffed out. His life was ended. And then there was a third son who was very young. And that woman of the first son, her husband died. The second son, Onan, he died. And then this third youngest son, he was very young. And Judah said, we will have to wait until this youngest son grows up more to give you a child. And when the son grew up more, he was not given as a husband to that woman. The whole thing was neglected. Now, here's when I want to start describing my life. My physical body was conceived in a hopelessly adulterous relationship. My mom was extremely promiscuous. She learned about sharing arousal and giving pleasure to people at a very young age. My father, my birth father, had been with many, many women because he lied his way into the Merchant Marines during World War II And he was in many, many ports, and many of his friends died in boats, and many places were bombed, and everyone that he got to be close with, if there was an opportunity for sexual pleasure, that sexual pleasure was given by my father with a wholehearted love and care and tenderness. Now, not in a marriage setting, but he got the practice of giving good kindness and pleasure to women. And then his first marriage had troubles and failed. And he remained in a state of promiscuity and was intimate with various women, not able to keep a marriage vow. Well, when he met my mother, my physical mommy Audrey, when he met my mom, he was married to, I guess, maybe second wife. He was married to Doris. And they had 4 children, and she was pregnant with their 5th child, Joyce Lee. At that time, when his wife was pregnant, he got my mommy pregnant at Duke College of Nursing in Raleigh, North Carolina. So my mommy got pregnant, and then she was trying to commit suicide because she was not in a marriage, and the guy that got her pregnant was married, and it was just hopeless for me, the little baby kid, to have anything to do with my daddy. My mommy wanted to die, and she was rescued by a guy that she met on the Ocean City Boardwalk and made out with who knows how many times. He could have been the father, but he wasn't in the same state when she conceived. So I was raised in a situation that was very irresponsible to the way of God and family and marital intimacy. I was born into an atmosphere of basic human disobedience to God and the way of family and man and woman and children. Now, to perpetuate that problem, after I was born, I had a daddy. The guy my mom met on the boardwalk, married her. I was at the wedding 5 months along, and when I was born, I had a daddy to catch me. And that daddy was a nice guy. But he and my mother both were afraid of talking about how I was conceived and talking about all the stuff of pleasure and arousal when they're grown-up adults and they know how powerful pleasure and arousal is. So there's no conversation whatsoever. Now, I know women who had no conversation about the menstrual flow and ended up just having to be surprised. There's a weird feeling, there's blood in my pants, and the girl has to come face to face in a shock with no preparation. Just like I came face to face with no preparation with the concept of erect penis arousal stimulation. Oh my gosh, it feels so good. So the male human being, the little kid, oh my gosh, it feels so good. And then the girl, oh my gosh, I'm bleeding. No preparation from the parents. No conversation, no jokes, no joy, no open-hearted conversation about this thing that is a life reality. And no conversation about the feel-good. Oh my gosh. A woman can be stimulated and feel so good. A man can be stimulated and feel so good. How does that work? And how do you figure out how to have your own person to enjoy without any confusion or mess? So my life was like the life of Judah and his 3 sons. That's 4 people. So then Judah's wife dies. The papa. He had 3 sons. His wife dies. He is longing for intimacy. He's heading into a town. He notices a woman dressed like a temple prostitute, which is a person who is open to receiving sexual interaction because there is a God of sex and you should respect that God. And the woman is dressed up as a servant of sexuality, however they do that. And Judah, The dad, whose wife died, enjoyed that woman. He wanted to enjoy that woman. So, this is the wild thing. The child that came from the union of the dad actually put his seed in the woman that was the wife of his first child. The dad put his seed inside the woman that was the life of the first child, and the lineage of praise, the lineage of Judah, went on in an atmosphere of messed up sexuality. So praise and messed up sexuality seem to be combined in one package, and that's the package that Messiah comes from. How weird is that? It's like, if you want to look at ironic, strange things, look at the fact that Yeshua, Jesus, did not come in the lineage of one of the super righteous brothers, but rather came in the lineage of one of the super messed up in family and sex brothers. Isn't that amazing? So, I just want to add this point to Christian Sex Daddy. And look, you can think that it's crazy for me to come up with a title like that. But I'm telling you, nobody had the guts to embarrass themselves and talk about these things. And if you think you're just okay in your love with Jesus, and you're not helping the men who are easily aroused, and the women who are secretly obsessed, and the people who have made a marriage vow when they're supposed to only have one marriage vow for a whole lifetime. Look at this study of what a true pastor overseer is. A true pastor overseer is a one woman for a lifetime. Who is a true widow? A true widow, honored by heaven, supported by the church, is a one-man woman. A woman who has been dedicated to only one man in her entire lifetime. And that's the foundation of ecclesia, is actually family men and family women. In the mix of family men and family women, there are lots and lots and lots of single peoples. Single People's Power Ministry, favorite aunties and uncles. It's a marvelous thing. It's a lovely thing. It's a wonderful thing. So, I spread this out before you. I am a person who is now completely cheerful and courageous about speaking of the feel-good of the aroused and erect penis, which is part of your family, and is totally willing to talk about the feel-good of the aroused vulva and clitoris that's part of our family, that's the woman. And it's a nice thing to check in and talk about these things. If you are feeling aroused too often, perhaps we need to talk about helping you get into a marriage bed for your satisfaction. Because there's many aspects to life. There's outreach, there's good work with the hands, there's worship and praise, there's study, there's raising children and teaching children and loving children, there's loving on people who are crippled and hurt and infirm. There's many parts of life, but enjoying the feel-good is a portion of life that the whole family should be comfortable talking about and being happy and concerned about. If you really, really need to be with a person, let us talk again about the joy of walking single like Jesus without a marriage bed. And let us talk about the joy of taking up your cross daily. A cross is a form of torture. If you're going to follow Jesus and take up a form of torture daily, what if you're called to take up the torture of not having a person to share your pleasure with? That really is a daily torture. to a person who remembers the feel good, loves the feel good, and just wants to give pleasure to someone because it's a comfort and it's a nice thing and it's one of the greatest miracles given by God. So this is the whole attitude of Christian Sex Daddy, Grandpa Honesty Guy. I just want to talk about the experiences that I've had in a way that my parents and my elders and my Christianity around me did not talk with me about. So therefore, I was afraid of asking for help. And I knew that I had needed help for a long, long time. So may you, my friend, be bound into a family freedom party and feel snuggled and delighted and full of joy many, many times, frequently throughout the week. I hope it's at least 3 times a week that you get to admit your faults and take communion and talk about the troubles on your heart and talk about your callings and your joys, your responsibilities, and the things that God is asking you to do. You are a precious friend, and consider the life of the son of Jacob named Judah. Thank you.